Hello and welcome to No Veto Video. I'm Carson.
I'm Katherine, and to round out Pride Month and hope you've had Happy Pride, we are here responding to the film from 2017, Beats Per Minute, or 120 beats per minute, depending on where you see it written or how you see it written, and sometimes it's just BPM. So it's my job to read the names today, and this is a French language film, and I'm not a French speaker. All you francophones in the audience, bear with me, and I'm sorry for what is about to happen. So BPM is directed by Robin Campillo, written by Campillo and Philippe Magano. It stars Nahuel Perez Biscayart, Arnaud Veloy, Adèle Haenel, Antoine Reinartz, Catherine Ventatier, Théophile Ray, and Ariel Borenstein.
Okay.
I will say, again, I am terribly sorry. My mispronouncing of your name or people you like's name is really only a reflection of my poor tongue. Luckily, the character names are a little bit easier for people who only speak English, so
that is true.
We will largely talk about characters. We understand the craft of acting is done by actors, but yeah. So there's that.
BPM follows what seems to be not the earliest days, but still kind of in the early period of the French wing of ACT UP, which, if you've seen How to Survive a Plague, you're familiar with ACT UP, or if you're familiar with Dan Savage's history, you should be familiar with ACT UP. They show up a little bit and the band played on. They're still around today, so check out their website if you want more information on them. But it shows not only the movement and what they were trying to accomplish, but also a lot of the personal lives of the people who were members of the, I believe, Paris branch. Mm-hmm. Paris branch of ACT UP.
So, I had heard about this film on some other movie podcasts that I listened to. It had been included in several critics' top 10 of last year, and it had really not played here much at all. I think it had played like one house in the city, for like a week. So we didn't get a chance to see it then, but we knew that we were going to be doing this special couple of episodes, so I held on to it till then. And also that the critics who had recommended it talked about how, its color and its life and its light, that sort of the artistic styling of the film. And so I was very, very excited to see that for myself, or see, maybe what they were talking about. So as I think about, we watched it last night, now we're going to respond to it today, so we've had a little time to mull over what it is that we saw. I'm thinking about some of the striking visuals that were in the film. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering kind of which striking visual stays with you the longest, or is kind of still percolating around in your noggin this morning.
Oh, there's a number of them, but one of them that I mentioned last night while we were watching it was when we go microscopic on the interludes and they start showing cells and then the HIV virus particles attacking them or escaping from them. Part of the film, instead of documentary, started feeling artsy, like an art film, and that felt a little jarring to me at times, like I couldn't quite tell what they were going for, but the visuals for that were really interesting.
Yeah, I think this is ultimately, I was sort of poking around online today, and I know we try to come to our own responses pretty blank, but I was seeing some people reviewing this film who were complaining about its pacing and were complaining about... But I think this film is ultimately not trying to be the French How to Survive a Plague.
Yeah.
It's its own thing, and in many ways it's not even it is ACT UP. Of course, it's obviously about ACT UP, but it's really a love story, I think. And that it has these sort of flights of fancy in them. At one point, I think it's a dream sequence involving a body of water, and for me, that's one of the most striking images from the film. Very, very arresting image of the Seine. And I think of it, it's so the main, so your entryway character is Nathan, or however they pronounce it. So Nathan has this experience of coming into ACT UP, being introduced at the very opening of the film, and sort of moving into all of the different aspects of it, the direct action, the protest, but also the learning about treatment options and learning about medications. We tend to focus on ACT UP's public activities, taking over buildings, die-ins, those kinds of things. But, there was this whole other wing of the early activity when research was being kept very close to the vest, and when people weren't sure what medicines to try and what medicines, and, weren't getting a lot of help from doctors. Although it seems like that wasn't so much the experience of this particular group of people at that point. That the French health system was serving them as well as they could. It wasn't that there was,
I think some of the people
pushback
would have argued with that, and some of them certainly did.
Well, and but I think it's...
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have much to do to help.
Yeah. At
that stage of the disease, and that unfortunately remains true in many parts of the world. So there's that. But so I think it shows Nathan getting sort of all the way through this, but it also talks about forming a relationship. He meets Sean. They kind of negotiate their various HIV statuses. They talk about previous relationships that they had, and they build the relationship together until sort of the culmination of their relationship towards the end of the film. I'm trying to be oblique here because I don't want to give too much away. I actually think this is a really nice film, but I think you have to know what you're getting in for, which is like, this is not a caper film. It's not like an activist film, really. I think it's a meditative romance. And I think knowing what you're getting into changes how you come at it.
Going back to what you said about some of the reviewers had pacing issues, I commented on that last night too. I didn't find many pacing issues. There were just two parts where there wasn't anything going on, not even dialogue. And coming at this from an American standpoint, where all of our movies have something going on, or most of our movies, during every scene, even if it's just like people doing awkward glances at each other. There were two places. One was a hospital room, and I can't remember where the other was. But amazingly, none of the bureaucracy, where they're just arguing back and forth, felt poorly paced to me. I've sat through a number of meetings. I know all about bureaucracy. It's mind-numbing to be there a lot of times, but they captured this in a way that actually makes the audience interested, I think.
Well, and it does show group dynamics in a really interesting way, which is good. And because this is a coalition movement, and there's lots of different... you even have like a Ryan White and his mother kind of character.
Oh, yeah.
And Helene and Marco. So you have sort of representation from lots of different constituencies within the AIDS activist community. And they don't always have the same perspectives, and they don't always have the same priorities, and they don't always think the same things are going to be helpful. So I think seeing that wrestling of group dynamic was actually kind of interesting. We may have done, I thought, maybe more of that than was strictly necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved those long, quiet, slice of life where nothing, dramatic is happening, nothing, plot progressing is happening, but there's this moment to sit and breathe. I think for characters who have a realization that their time is quite limited, that to just take that moment to sort of breathe in and breathe out was actually like a gift that the filmmakers gave these characters.
And that's something else you touched on last night while we were watching it also. Another conflicting dynamic in play is some of these people clearly had a lot more time to wait for a cure than other people, and that was causing tensions. If you can wait, you can work on trying to get funding. If you can't wait, you need trials to start right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a wrestling in this group around how are we going to talk about who we are and what our emphasis is on.
Mm-hmm.
And the concern about we have a serious message to say, but if we say it in a serious way, no one will listen to us, or we're like Debbie Downers, or I call myself sometimes Catherine Killjoy. Which, speaking of which, if you don't know your status and you're someone who might benefit from knowing your status, it's very easy to get tested. There's lots of ways to get connected with that. In fact, these days there's really no reason not to know your status.
Yeah.
So take care of that. Take care of yourself. You're worth being taken care of. So, Catherine Killjoy. And so even to say, like, in the midst of Pride, and they want to be there and they want to celebrate Pride, but they've got to say, like, we have this thing as a community that we need to be taking care of ourselves and each other.
Yeah.
Although the language that you would use to describe their constituent groups was like, these are not, and it could be just the translator, I don't know, but like, these are not words that would call me into being in group with you. In fact, if there are some pretty awful words used to describe people in this film, and if they're triggering events for you, once you encounter the first one, just know that that's going to happen all the way through. And if it's not comfortable, that you should probably stop there. It
could be a translation issue, as you said. If so, it's a horrible translation.
Right.
But I viewed it differently. I saw it as they were taking these words back. They were reclaiming them.
And that's entirely possible, but not everybody...
No, I know.
There's a great episode of the Illusionist podcast, by the way, just in case you're a podcaster, about the word queer and how people have very different responses to that word. And even as people say, I know we're taking it back as a good thing to call ourselves, the people who grew up with it as a slur say, I can't go along with it. It's just always going to be a hurtful word for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that.
And that would have been interesting to see in this movie also, if there was a conflict between people in the group over terminology.
Yeah.
A good place to have put that would have been when they were coming up with slogans, since it came up in the slogans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not a lot of representation of the trans community in this film. I think only, once or twice does a trans character get to sort of claim, her own space and to say, what some of her concerns are in this movement. But, just thinking about that.
It's possible that historically there weren't many trans people in that movement.
And I don't know. I'm going to, in this case, trust the filmmakers. Both Robin and Philippe were part of the activist community in Paris of this time. And so apparently they drew very much from their own personal experiences as they were writing this script and as they were directing it.
Yeah.
So in some ways this is the organizational activist parts of it are autobiographical in some respects.
Yeah.
What did you make of this romance between Sean and Nathan?
At sometimes I was actually confused as to how it worked because they seemed so different. Like even the people within Act Up that they got along with was a different subset of people. They overlapped heavily, but Tybalt, Sean just hated him, or it seemed. I don't think he so much hated him. I think it's their immediate goals were just so different that it caused a lot of conflict. But Sean just didn't want to be around him at all, and that clearly wasn't the case for Nathan.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also just you can't deny the fact that, like, even though they had different goals, that they were there together.
Yeah.
And,
but there were a lot of things that just struck me as being radically different between Sean and Nathan. Just their personalities were vastly different. I would have thought that would have caused more conflict for them than it did. I don't know. It seemed to work, though.
I just say I found them both very nurturing people, and I understand it. It makes sense to me. In fact, it was lovely to see. This is not a couple that the Lobster would work for example.
Oh yeah.
But that there was this desire to hold and be held. That there was this coming together, and that clearly their attraction was very, very powerful.
Yeah.
This film actually has some pretty frank
depictions?
I don't want to say that. Sex scenes. They have some pretty explicit sex scenes. And so this film was actually not rated in America because it would be rated X.
I don't think so.
For the end film. Oh. The very, very end scenes.
Maybe. Going back just slightly.
Or certainly NC-17.
Just going back slightly, in case someone missed it, you were referencing the movie The Lobster, not just like a creature, the lobster. I know it wasn't the movie didn't get a lot of showing, so in case people missed that. Another place of conflict that we failed to mention earlier that I thought was interesting last night while watching the movie, when they went into the school and started handing out leaflets in the classrooms. So they split into multiple groups so they could go to different classrooms at the same time. And one group just barged in, and the teacher was not having any of this. He was trying to kick them out, but the students seemed genuinely interested in what the information in the pamphlets was. The second group asked permission, and the teacher said, "Sure, come on in. I think this is important." But the students weren't taking the pamphlet seriously. They were laughing at it and whatever else. And I commented at the time...
So my perception of this scene is actually quite different. Just wanted to flood there about that.
And I commented to you at the time, I wonder if this teacher was just more receptive to having the information shared, or if it's because they were more polite about it. But I thought afterwards, I also wonder if the students in the first class were more receptive because, this is forbidden knowledge, they shouldn't have it, so then they're going to pay attention to it. If the teachers don't want us to know it, well, we should read all of this.
The heart of the challenge of sex education. Right there.
Yeah.
So, of much education, I guess, of moral education in general. It's a tough thing. But it also, it talks about how important these things are to know and how important this is the information to know.
And I found it kind of comical when I think it was the principal was arguing that the 16-year-olds in their school aren't having sex. Several of the teachers thought that was amusing too.
Some countries of the world claim that there are no homosexual people in their countries. And it's like declaring it thus doesn't make it thus, and and so depriving an important part of your community of services and things that they need just by going la 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 is hardly a public strategy.
Well, it is. It's just not a very good one.
Not a very good one. So yeah.
One wonders where he thinks teen pregnancies, come out of. If
no idea. Anyway, final thoughts?
I mean, my only objection was just the two pacing issues. So overall, a really good movie.
Yeah, I would say this doesn't have the kind of vibrancy or joy that I was promised, except in one particular scene that seems to have been like drug influenced. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, I thought there was going to be more of this. That the clubbing scenes that should have been sort of more vibrant were actually kind of sad, for me. And that being said, this was a beautiful romance story, and so I think if that's your entry in, and you're ready for a sort of more meditatively paced thing like that, at one point the filmmaker becomes entranced with, dust motes in a beam of light, in a way that echoes cells, but also snow, and also I think just the ephemeralness of our existence. But I think you'd kind of need to sit there and be ready for that sort of point of meditation. I'm going to defend the pacing of this film. I think it's actually a really beautifully paced movie, and a movie that's very ambitious in its scope. And if it doesn't 100% hit everything, it's only because it was reaching for so much.
I think you need to go back and watch it if you missed joy in the movie. A lot of the time where they were acting out the plans they had, they were extremely happy about it. I mean, there was laughing, there was...
Yeah, I guess that is true.
It's just we spend so much time in meetings, and no one's happy in a meeting.
No one's happy in meetings. But no, I think I will do this for this film.
Yes.
All right. So there you go.
So if you think we've missed something that was vital to the critique of this film, please leave it down in the comments. If you agree with us, if you just have other recommendations that are similar in vein to this movie, please leave those down below, or go to novetovideo.com and leave your comments there. And so far, we've replied to every comment we've received.
Absolutely every one. All right, so that brings us to the point in No Veto Video where we share with you an additional film. We call it our Veto Override. It goes alongside or perhaps in place of this film. I think in this case it's both companion pieces.
Yeah.
So we're going to call this the How to Survive a Plague Memorial Override, since neither of us are going to pick that one. We think it's an excellent film and a really amazing documentary about ACT UP New York, and sort of the initial branch of ACT UP and what they got up to in the late 80s. So
yeah, it's just a little it's a little too obvious.
It's a little too obvious. We're gonna try and stretch a little bit and go for something a little different. So what you got?
Slightly less obvious. We Were Here.
Didn't you just recommend it?
No, I recommended Beautiful Darling.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so We Were Here. Tell us a little about that.
We Were Here follows, I believe, it's been a while since I've seen it, I believe 4 people who survived through the earliest parts of the AIDS epidemic in San Francisco, right? San Francisco. And tells about the people they lost and the people who were still around for them, people they saw make miraculous recoveries, who were, for all intents and purposes, on their deathbeds, and then were back out on the street running their shops. So a lot of joy in there that you found lacking in this, but also a lot of grief.
So I think my recommendation, and I hope I haven't made it before, maybe we did it as an episode, but the movie Pride, which talks about how gay men and lesbians from London go to Wales to support a coal miners' strike, and the ways in which this community come together and make a new community of support and solidarity. I think there is that sort of movement back and forth between like clubbing and direct action and forming, relationship, and then also this other side of things. So, stars Bill Nighy. I think you guys will enjoy it. And among many, many other people. There's lots and lots of people in this film that you will recognize if you've been watching movies for a while. So, yeah. We were here. We were there.
We were here.
We were here. Pride. Check those out. And let us know what you think. Also down below or in the comments.
And next time on No Veto Video, we'll be reviewing Let Me In, the American version of Let the Right One In. Let the Right One In is not available for streaming anywhere that I can find, so the American reimagining of it is what we'll be watching.
And it's on
Netflix.
On Netflix.
And a few other places, I believe, but definitely Netflix.
Alright, so come and find us again in a couple of weeks. We will be responding to that, and thank you for watching. If you would like to know when the next episode comes out, because sometimes it's early and sometimes it's late, go on and hit the subscribe button. It'll let you know when we're here. Helps us out too. Like the video if you want to. If you like this rambling review of a movie. And we will see you when we get back. Bye.
Bye.